Hi guys, DeMarco here, and today going to do something a little different. I've got your complimentary plays for you, but since I'm about to jump on a plane and head to Ohio State for my latest leukemia treatment, and I probably won't be around to comment on your comments down in the comment section, which is really way too many uses of the word comments in a single sentence or clause, I'm going to run through a number of games on the board after the complimentary plays that I think that you will most likely be asking me to comment on. Again, 4 times the use of the word comment in the opening minute of this video report, way too many later in the day, because I may not be around to respond. Now, listen, I opened up the comment section 5 a couple of months ago because I felt as a gambling community, it's kind of cool for you guys to leave your selections down there. And I really had hoped that many of you would comment on each other's, that's 6, selections too. But it hasn't really worked that way. Instead, you just ask me my opinions on everything. And I don't mind if if you happen to be hanging out at the keyboard for hours on end to respond. But today, definitely, I'll be on the plane heading to Columbus, Ohio, where it's probably freezing cold and ugly. But it is what it is. But so I'm going to run down, as I said, a number of the other plays. Before I get to that, though, just a quick little comment. Yes, that is now 7. I've got to come up with a synonym for that word. Last Saturday, at the end of the day, some bozo, I was going to use another word, but I might get kicked off YouTube for that one. And I don't want to insult anyone's mothers this early in the day. Writes in and says that I cost him a fortune because I went 0-3 with my complimentary plays. Now, first of all, I went 1-3. But then he writes back and he says that I cost him even more money because 2 of the plays lost outright. So North Carolina, an 11.5-point favorite. He was betting North Carolina on the money line. Yeah, whack job. And again, I don't want to use another word and insult anybody's mothers there either. So, clown. Got off the clown car, and I guess he found my video report. I'm not too sure. What do I always say about complimentary plays? Complimentary plays are plays that I narrowed from the card, and for one reason or another, they didn't quite make it as my best bet of the day. Oh, and by the way, today, college football, I'm going for a top-rated 15-dime best bet winner, number 6 in a row. It's Clemson and Notre Dame. And it's once again going to be the half-price play of the day because, as I always like to say, I don't believe that you have to spend big bucks in order to make big bucks. So let's use that same coupon code. Very original, the word HALF, H-A-L-F. If you'd like to get college football 15-dime best bet winner number 6 in a row, Clemson Notre Dame, half-price play of the day using coupon code HALF. Now, he didn't mention that last Saturday, the best bet winner was Louisville, -6, 23-0 over Duke. He didn't mention the previous Saturday. Best bet winner was Michigan, 49-0 over Michigan State. Nah, inconsequential. Didn't write back on last Sunday, when I went 4-1 with the NFL free picks, and now on a 19-8 run with the freebies in the NFL over the past 6 weeks. Didn't write back after I cashed in with the Dolphins last Sunday, another 15-dime best bet winner in the NFL, number 18 out of 26. And FYI, between college football and the NFL, well, I'm kind of hot right now because today is going to be football winner number 22 out of 33 overall. But that's what you get. Some guys are just clowns. And I don't care. I don't take it personally. It doesn't bother me. But the reason I'm telling the story, as my earpiece is falling out, is because this is what you deal with. I generally like doing this, but sometimes you have to laugh because when you get asinine comments like that, you just have to laugh at them and go, these guys, they deserve to lose money. I hope he did go 0-3. And he missed my winner in Oklahoma State. Okay, with that being said, let's get to your complimentary plays. I'm going to do these in reverse chronological order, and I'm going to run right through them. Let's start with Washington at USC. Washington is a 3-point favorite, but you tell me. That total is 77. USC might give up 77 points on its own. I just don't get the total. At one sports book, I saw that total opened at 69. It's 77. That game kicks off at 7:30 Eastern time. That total might go up to 80, and it still might go over. I mean, that USC defense is pathetic. How Lincoln Riley didn't fire his defense coordinator, Alec Wrench, in the offseason, and all his defensive staff, even at this point of the season, is beyond me. USC 113th in scoring defense, giving up almost 33 points a game, 114th among 132 FBS schools in total defense, giving up almost 421 yards a game. Now, devil's advocate, Michael Penix Jr. has struggled here the past couple of games. 48 of 80, 644 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Some of his wide receivers have been hurt. He was, not at 100% health-wise a couple of games ago with some type of illness. The ground game has not been productive. But the one thing I will say about Washington, and I've loved them this year, they have either played up or down to the level of competition. Remember the Oregon game, right? I say they play up to the competition here tonight. I say play Washington -3, buy down that half point on the Huskies if that line is 3 or 4. I like the over specifically, but I also like Washington in this game as well. Next game, West Virginia -12, it's minus about 11, I think, at home against BYU. I have not been impressed by BYU all season long. On the road for a second straight week after losing to Texas. Listen, West Virginia lost that heartbreaker on the Hail Mary pass at Houston. Then they came home, lost to Oklahoma State, which they should have. I think that's to be expected. But then they took care of business going to Central Florida last week, a Central Florida team that gave Oklahoma all it could deal with in Norman a week earlier, and they handled the Knights with ease. I think West Virginia is a more physical team. I think they're going to be able to run the ball relentlessly on the Cougars, who have no ground game. They're a one-dimensional offense. And I think West Virginia minus the double digits is a fine play here in that spot. Next game, the Battle of Bedlam. Oklahoma State, +6 points. Once Mike Gundy decided to go with Alan Bowman at quarterback, he made that choice. Look at what this team has done. 4 straight wins and covers. Beating Kansas State by 8, Kansas by 7. Those games at home. Went to West Virginia, won by 14. Those 3 games, they were a dog. Then 45-13 against Cincinnati last week. A game that was 10-7 at half. It was muddy. It was raining. But also, it's not just Bowman. Really, the key to this turnaround for Oklahoma State has been running back Ollie Gordon, 271 yards last week. During the 4-game winning streak, 857 yards, 9 touchdowns, 8.2 yards per carry. That is a season for some guys. I think this is a 3-point game. I think Oklahoma State could win this game outright. You saw the Sooners coming off that 38-33 loss at Kansas. And the week prior, they barely got by Central Florida, 31-29. Makes you wonder, or makes you question the credibility of that win against Texas, doesn't it? Again, I like Oklahoma State in this one, plus the points. And this currently is 6.5. I'm buying up that half point on Oklahoma State if that line is anywhere between 5.5 and 7 in this spot. The next game is going to be, Texas. -3.5 at home. This line was 5. It's dropped down to 3.5. I'm naturally buying down the half point. I can see why a lot of people are in love with Kansas State. The Wildcats are getting a lot of love. But, this is a team that what I call step-up games. They lost to Missouri by 3. They got drilled at Oklahoma State. It was an 8-point loss, but it was definitively the Cowboys kicking their rear ends. Yeah, they rebounded with a win at Texas Tech. Big deal. They beat TCU and Houston in their last 2 games at home by a combined score of 82-3. Big deal. Now, Texas, took care of business against BYU last week. Malik Murphy, the redshirt freshman, starting in place of Ewers. He played okay, a couple of turnovers, but 16 for 25, 170 yards. But the key in this game, the way I look at it, is the fact that the big offensive line for Texas should be able to open holes against an undersized Kansas State front 7. And I think that will mean that Jonathan Brooks, who's already run for 922 yards and 6.4 yards per carry, and C.J. Baxter should have big games taking the pressure off of Murphy. On the other side of the line of scrimmage, Kansas State has not played a defensive front as good, as big, as athletic as the Longhorns. Also, I think that Kansas State secondary is somewhat slow, and I think it's going to have problems dealing with the speed that the Texas wide receivers have. So if Murphy is given time, I think he can exploit it. I don't think this is a blowout, but I think it could be a solid 6-point, 7-point win for the Longhorns in this spot. On the early card, Ole Miss is a 3-point favorite in Oxford, where they've won 17 of their last 19 games straight up. against a Texas A&M team that's 7-15 straight up on the road under Jimbo Fisher. You tell me why Ole Miss is only a 3-point favorite. I certainly don't get it. You know, Texas A&M, the 3 losses to Alabama, to Tennessee, to Miami by a combined 28 points. And people will say that's something to crow about. I say they lost those 3 games to Alabama, to Tennessee, and Miami by a total of 28 points. Have you seen any improvement by Texas A&M as the season has progressed? That alone has me on Mississippi in this game. So let's recap the complementary plays before I run down the rest of the card quickly. I think that Washington USC game goes over. I love that play. I think it's the best bet along the board, along with, are you ready? Oklahoma State. I think those are the 2 best bets on the board. Texas, solid, right there as number 2. Mississippi, right behind them as number 3. Washington, straight up against USC, would be right there in the next tier. So that's how I rate the actual complementary plays. I didn't miss anybody, did I? I'm just double checking to make sure I got them all. Yes, I got them all. So with that being said, let's run down the rest of the games quickly. The games I think that you would probably be asking me if I was sitting here all day anyway. Boy, this is going to be fun. Okay, let's start here, and I got my odds up here. Running. Oh God, Georgia Tech. I never want to talk about Georgia Tech again this season. Okay, that's just no. Utah and Arizona State. Utah is an 11-point favorite at home. I'm still not convinced about that Utah offense. But I am convinced that the Utah defense would bounce back. And I think that in this particular spot, I would go ahead and lay the 11 points with Utah in this game. Air Force is a 17.5-point favorite at home against Army. I know the dog has dominated in this series. But when I look at what Army has done this season, and I mean, Army hasn't done much this season, I would probably go ahead and lay the points with the 8-0 Air Force. This game, of course, is being played at Denver, home of the Broncos and Empower Stadium. Army's coming off a 21-14 home loss to UMass. You lost to UMass. I don't care if this is an academy game. I would go and lean with Air Force in this particular spot. Next game of note would be Florida State and Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh got their asses kicked by Notre Dame. Do you think they're going to be able to hang tight with Florida State? The problem with Florida State is they're kind of a messy team. Sometimes they seem motivated, sometimes they don't. 3 touchdowns, actually a little more, 21.5-point favorite. But if you force me to play it, I would take Florida State. Penn State, 8.5-point favorite against Maryland. Hold it, James Franklin. It's not Michigan. It's not Ohio State. He can beat Maryland. But has Penn State played well on the road this season? Not necessarily. Maryland certainly collapsed here since losing at Ohio State. Might be a prime teaser spot to take Penn State down 7 to a 1.5-point road chalk, and I think they should beat them. This game, Louisville was my best bet last Saturday. Louisville is now 10-point favorite at home against Virginia Tech. Is this a classic trap game for the Cardinals, a letdown situation after the 23-0 shutout of Duke? Meanwhile, Virginia Tech has certainly played better here of late and a strong ground game. That is a game, to me, is a classic stay-away situation. Houston Baylor, why would anybody play that game? Missouri, plus 15 at Georgia. Best defense that Missouri has faced all season. Missouri has scored at least 31 points, I believe, in all but one game this year. I think this is a game that could be 31-23. I would grab the points with the dog in this spot. And Georgia's coming off one of its biggest games of the season, of course, that being the win against Florida. So emotions high. This could be a little bit of a letdown for the Bulldogs in this spot. Oregon is minus 24.5 at home against Cal. I think the Ducks can name the score in this one. I have no problem with laying the double digits in that particular situation. Your next game is going to be Iowa State, minus the 3 at home against Kansas. I think this is a great spot to catch Kansas flat-footed after the huge, shocking upset of Oklahoma last week at home. They tear down the goalpost. Now you're telling them, hey, go to Iowa State. Iowa State isn't good, but they're playing better, and they're a strong defense. I would lay the 3 points with Iowa State and buy off the hook in that one. Your next game is going to be Kentucky and Mississippi State. Mississippi State is a 4.5-point home dog. 2 disappointing and hard-to-read SEC teams. I have to be honest with you, I have no clue. The cheaters in maize and blue. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking about Michigan. Michigan is a 32.5-point favorite. I don't know. You want to lay 32.5 points in this point of the season? But I certainly want to take Purdue. This next game, Alabama minus 3 at home against LSU. People will say, well, Alabama never loses at home. What happened against Texas, huh? I like LSU here. Certainly the best quarterback and the best player on the field is Jaden Daniels. I would buy up to 3.5, but that Tigers defense certainly gives you pause and gives you concern with the way they've underachieved this year. Miami of Florida is a 6-point favorite at NC State. If you know anything or more about the Hurricanes, please write me because I am clueless about that team. I haven't used them one way or another all season long, and you just never know what you get from one week or another. Washington State is a 13-point favorite at home against Stanford. This is a team that I was riding early in the season. They have completely fallen off the face of the earth, and yet I like them today, minus the 13 at home against Stanford. It's just a hunch, but I know this team has talent. I know Cameron Ward is going to get back together. I know they're just waiting to put 48 points on the board and beat someone badly. And maybe Stanford is just what the doctor ordered. Oregon State, coming off the loss, haven't played well here. But the one thing they have going against them in Boulder today is they have huge advantages on the size and the talent on the offensive defensive lines. I said at the beginning of the season that Dion can go out and get all the offensive talent that he wants, but you just don't find linemen in the portal, and you've seen that this season. So I like Oregon State minus the 13 in this spot. In the final game, boy, Arizona's been playing great this year of late, especially with the freshman quarterback. I would grab the 2.5 points, buy up to 3, and take Arizona to knock off UCLA. So that's a rundown of all the other plays. I wish you well, guys, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Good luck, everybody.